This one's going to be again about the cognitive behavioral therapy, and it's going to be good. It's going to be great, and I'm looking forward to it. And as always, more after the intro. Maybe I should script the intros, but maybe even not. I don't know. But yeah, with that being said, hello, welcome back to the next episode of the Self-Development with Tactics fucking podcast. And I'm pretty fucking pumped to go through this episode or to record this episode, even though I wasn't as pumped for the particular content that I'm going to go through just right now. But yeah, it is what it is. I think it still might help somebody, which is kind of the... besides me being interested in this whole topic, it is also one reason why I'm actually going through it, because I believe that it might help somebody, or it might just get somebody to just get some professional help, which is definitely something pretty good. If you actually recognize yourself, or if you're actually seeing it yourself, that you need some professional help. But yeah, before I even start this episode, I do just have to point out that this particular episode is also available as a podcast, which means that you can listen to it, which means that it is a way more effective and efficient way. Effective, maybe not so really, but definitely a way more efficient way to consume this episode, because you can do something simultaneously. You could be walking your dog, you could be cooking, you could be tidying up your room, you could be doing so many things while you're listening to this, and this is just way more effective than sitting here for 30 to 50 or maybe even 60 minutes. I don't know what today's episode is going to be like or how long it's going to be. It is just way more effective than sitting here for just a reasonable amount of time and staring at your screen. This is just really ineffective, even though, this is just the way some people learn. Some people learn through listening to things, and some people are really unable to learn something through listening to it. And therefore, I'm actually having both. You can choose what you like more and what you like more to learn. So choose. All the links should be down in the description, and also all the links should be down in the show notes if you're on the podcast but you would really like to see me talking and see my face and see my emotions and all those things that might be relevant for you. But yeah, let's see. The ABC model. This is where we stopped yesterday, actually. I do kind of feel like that my blanket that I'm having here is somehow wet. I don't know why I'm having this feeling. It could also just be, are you also having some problems with deciding sometimes when something, or if something is either a little bit wet or if it is just cold? Because sometimes it just feels a little bit wet for me. I don't know if this is just some struggle that only I'm having, but it wouldn't particularly be nice, if it was a little bit wet, or if it is a little bit wet. Not really good for all the technical things that I'm having here. But yeah, the ABC model. A major aid in cognitive therapy is what Albert Ellis, 1957, called the ABC technique of irrational beliefs. The first 3 steps analyze the process by which a person has developed irrational beliefs and may be recorded in a 3-column table. So irrational beliefs are beliefs that are just not really true or just not rational, which means that people are basically processing information a wrong way or in a faulty way, basically. This is what happens when somebody has or somebody is receiving the reality in a different way. The problem is, how do you tell somebody that their reality is not the real reality? And who actually says that this reality is the real reality? So it is definitely something that's pretty complicated. And at my point of view, and I do think that this is actually the thing that cognitive behavioral therapy is doing, is that people have to recognize it themselves. If you tell them, okay, my reality is the right one and yours is not, I don't know if they are going to believe in you. I would actually think that they don't believe in you, because they also know, okay, what is really the right reality? Because it could also be the case that your reality as a therapist or as somebody that is telling somebody that their reality is not right, that your reality is also not particularly right or is just not right. Therefore, it is a really complicated thing at my point of view, just at my point of view or in my point of view. So step A from the ABC model is activating events. The second one is belief, and the third one is consequences. A, activating event or objective situation. The first column records the objective situation, that is an event that ultimately leads to some type of high emotional response or negative dysfunctional thinking. So because I actually was talking about it in the last episode as well, a little bit, I was actually assuming that it is any event, but it is really important to point out that it is an event that ultimately leads to some type of high emotional response or negative dysfunctional thinking. So it's probably going to be something that's, I do not want to say severe, because it doesn't necessarily have to be severe, but it's definitely going to be something that's maybe abnormal and something that's hopefully not going to happen every day, maybe, unless you're having some anxiety in terms of, social anxiety and those things. Then it might actually be the case that you're having those responses or those events every single day. And I assume that this is definitely something that can freak you out. If it is actually the case that you're having some social anxieties, in particular situations and or scenarios, and then just freaking out a lot of times during the day, I guess it's just exhausting, to be honest. Like, if I'm just thinking about it, it must really be exhausting. Fuck yeah. B is their beliefs, or the beliefs. In the second column, or their beliefs actually, in the second column, the client writes down the negative thoughts that occurred to them. So first of all, you have to write down an event. Then you're going to have the beliefs and or the things that you thought about in this particular moment or after this particular moment. And C is the consequence, which I assume are like the emotions you feel. The third column is for the negative feelings and dysfunctional behaviors that ensued. The negative thoughts of the second column are seen as a connection bridge between the situation and the distressing feelings. The third column, C, is next explained by describing emotions or negative thoughts that the client thinks are caused by A. So by the event. This could be anger, sorrow, anxiety, and all those things. I gotta have to close down Photoshop and maybe even other software that I'm having open here, because I'm a little bit afraid that the whole thing is going to crash and the whole recording is fucked, because this is something that I do not particularly like, as you could think of as well. But yeah. Ellis believes that it is not the activating event A that causes negative emotional and behavioral consequences C, but rather that a person interprets these events unrealistically and therefore has an irrational belief system. B, that helps cause the consequences C. And I would say so, and I do think this is kind of the core of cognitive behavioral therapy, that it is definitely making a difference how you're receiving and how you're actually seeing the world. Because the thing is, an activating event A just is going to create different outcomes or different consequences for different people, because different people think differently. Just most of the time, unless you're actually picking two people that are just really thinking the exact same way. Could happen in theory, but I guess like practically, there is a chance, of course, there is the possibility and chance for that, but let's assume it is not the case. Let's assume it is not the case, and you're having two people. You're having two people that are thinking in two different ways. Then, of course, if you're thinking in a different way than somebody else, you're basically also going to receive the outer world or your reality in a different way, and therefore there's going to be different consequences. But for example, if you're just only seeing the negative in the world, of course, the consequences are going to be feeling bad, because this activating event A leads to a belief B that is negative, so the belief is negative, and this negative belief is of course going to lead to not feeling particularly well. But if you're having the exact same event and you're receiving or you're seeing this particular event as something positive or something neutral, then the consequences are just going to be different. At least as I'm thinking about it, or at least as I'm just understanding it as well. And also by experience, like we all think in different ways, and we all see things differently most often. Of course, as I said, there's going to be some, there is the chance that there is actually the case that people are going to see the world in the exact same way, because, I don't know, if we're talking about events, and they can either be positive, negative, or neutral, then of course there's going to be just some people that are seeing it as something negative, and some people that are seeing it as something positive, and some people that are going to see it as something neutral. But still, we all receive the world in a little bit of a different way. It comes up to the example, of course. But yeah, and there's a little kind of a picture. So negative event A leads to rational belief and therefore healthy negative emotion. And on the other side, we're having negative event A leads to irrational belief B. So the difference is, on the left side, we're having the rational belief, and on the right side, we're having the irrational belief. And this irrational belief leads to unhealthy negative emotion, compared to the other side where it leads to healthy negative emotion. The REBT example. Gina is upset because she got a low mark on a math test. The activating event A is that she failed her test. The belief B is that she must have good grades or she is worthless. The consequence C is that Gina feels depressed. After irrational beliefs have been identified, the therapist will often work with the client in challenging the negative thoughts on the basis of evidence from the client's experience by reframing it, meaning to reinterpret it in a more realistic light, which means that you're going to take the belief section B, or the B out of the ABC model, and you're going to reframe it, and you're going to just set it or put it into a different light, because the thing is, and this is also something that, for example, Viktor Frankl was also talking about in his, I do not know if it was in his book Man's Search for Meaning, because he was actually writing not only Man's Search for Meaning, but also I think 4 or 5 other books. So actually he wrote quite a lot of books, to be honest. I didn't know that until I actually looked it up. But he also said, which is a quote of him that you can find actually by typing in Viktor Frankl, and there's going to be just some little Google box, where all his probably most famous and most popular quotes are. And one of them is that something like, when you can't change life, and or if you can't change the situation in life, then you gotta have to change yourself. And changing yourself for me means changing how you're receiving the things and how you're seeing your reality, and how you're seeing or interpreting these things that you're seeing and these things that you're getting. And it just makes sense because, as I said before, I can see things in a positive light and I can also see them in a negative light. It just really comes up to how I'm thinking about it or how I'm seeing it, but it definitely will also come up to the people that are surrounding you. If there's a lot of negative people that are surrounding you, then chances are also pretty high that you're also going to be relatively negative. Just as a person, as you're seeing the world, all those things. This is also one of the reasons why, particularly I talk about the importance of knowing that the people around you are actually influencing you in a lot of ways. For example, this way. And but also just like all the people. Like, I do want to point out that all the people, it's like friends and family, it still depends on how much time you're spending with them. It just really is like, the more time you spend with this particular person or with these particular people, then the more influence that they are going to have, basically, in theory at least. But yeah, let's actually move on. Reframing it, meaning to reinterpret it in a more realistic light. This helps the client to develop more rational beliefs and healthy coping strategies, or coping, just to cope with something, A therapist would help Gina realize that there is no evidence that she must have good grades to be worthwhile, or that getting bad grades is awful. She desires good grades and it would be good to have them, but it hardly makes her worthless. If she realizes that getting bad grades is disappointing, but not awful, and that it means she is currently bad at math or at studying, but not as a person, she will feel sad or frustrated, but not depressed. The sadness and frustration are likely healthy negative emotions and may lead her to study harder from then on. And I also have to say that it is really, 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 really important that they are pointing out that there are healthy negative emotions, because something that I've seen with how I communicate things sometimes is that I sometimes kind of leave out on those healthy negative emotions, because there are definitely healthy negative emotions. Those healthy negative emotions are, like they say, it could actually be sadness and it could be frustration, which then lead to a positive outcome. I assume, that this is some sort of the definition of healthy negative emotions, and unhealthy negative emotions, I assume, are going to lead to just some negative outcomes. But the thing is, negative emotions are really important, and negative emotions aren't really that bad always. It's going to be bad if they are crushing you and crippling you, and if they're going to make your life less worthless, some sort of, because you believe, as they say actually, that you believe you're worthless, for example, because just you failed the math test or the maths test, which is definitely like not the case. You're not worthless and your life is not worthless just because you failed one test. It doesn't say anything. This test doesn't say anything, or is not saying anything. But yeah, there are negative emotions and healthy negative emotions that show things to you. The thing is, we should really listen closely to our feelings, because our feelings tell us certain things, and they are just pointing out certain things that we might not be seeing. They might point out that you're not happy, and sometimes you might be feeling like you don't know why you are unhappy. And this is kind of a way of your negative emotions and your kind of actually brain, some sort of as well, to just show you some things that you should be seeing, but you're not seeing them. And this is the point now. It just makes you see things that you wouldn't see without them. As I have seen it as well, and as I've heard it and read it and whatever. Critical evaluation. Yeah. Critical evaluation. Rational emotive behavior therapists have cited, I still don't know how it is pronounced, I'm sorry, many studies in support of this approach. Most early studies were conducted on people with experimentally induced anxieties or non-clinical problems such as mild fear of snakes. Kendall and Chris in 1983. I guess it's names, or could also be therapists, I don't know. However, a number of recent studies have been done on actual clinical subjects and have also found that rational emotive behavior therapy, which is REBT, is often helpful. Lyons and Woods in 1991. So it seems to be a study from 1991, which I would say isn't particularly recent, I guess, if I'm actually getting this right, but I don't know. And there is Aaron Beck. And I do just think if we should go through the last few things, no, it's too much. I have to go through it, or I want to go through it. And there is Aaron Beck, the cognitive therapy. So we're having Ellis, don't know the first time, unfortunately, and then we're having Beck. So Ellis and Beck are basically kind of the main figures in cognitive behavioral therapy, as we've seen yesterday in the first episode, where it has mostly been about like a little bit of an introduction to cognitive behavioral therapy, which is really interesting as well. So check it out on my channel or on the podcast. So Aaron Beck, cognitive therapy. Beck's 1967 system of therapy is similar to Ellis, but has been most widely used in cases of depression. Cognitive therapists help clients to recognize the negative thoughts and errors in logic that cause them to be depressed. The therapist also guides clients to question and challenge their dysfunctional thoughts, try out new interpretations, and ultimately apply alternative ways of thinking in their daily lives. Aaron Beck believes that a person's reaction to specific upsetting thoughts may contribute to abnormality. As we confront the many situations that arise in life, both comforting and upsetting thoughts come into our heads, of course. Always, every single day. Beck calls these unbidden cognitions automatic thoughts. When a person's stream of automatic thoughts is very negative, you would expect a person to become depressed. I'm never going to get this essay finished. My girlfriend fancies my best friend. I'm getting fat. I have no money. My parents hate me. Have you ever felt like this? ? Which is, I guess, a note from the author of this particular blog article. Quite often these... Is it quite or quit? Either one of those things. It's either quite or quit. Often these negative thoughts will persist even in the face of contrary evidence. Beck, 1967, identified 3 mechanisms that he thought were responsible for depression. And I would actually say that it is a particularly common thing, I guess, as I would actually frame it right now. Maybe I think it is not such a rare thing. I guess that you might also just know a person that is only seeing the negative in every single situation. And of course, this is not something that's particularly happy. Unless you can actually see that this person is happy from time to time or in certain situations, then I wouldn't necessarily say that it is too bad. But if you clearly see that a person is kind of depressed or just not feeling good, it might just be due to them always being negative and always seeing things in a negative light and always just perceiving all the events that they are in or that they are just interacting with as something negative. Obviously, or maybe not that obviously, something bad or negative. Haha. But yeah. Let's see. So the first thing is the cognitive triad or negative automatic thinking. And I do think that actually the cognitive triad is actually a pretty important thing to point out. That there is some negative automatic thinking or some negative automatic thoughts that we are having that are negative and that are not good. Those things. The second one is negative self-schemes or schemes. And the third one is errors in logic, for example, faulty information processing. And we're going to talk about those 3 things in the next episode, or maybe just 2 of them. No, I think I should be able to finish up with this one the next time. I at least hope, I at least assume, should be fine. But yeah, just because we have been able to not really finish up, but go ahead with this one, we are going ahead with another Quora question. I do really hope that I'm going to be able to find something that's interesting to you and also me, and something to just go through. Are real people monitoring social media? Are real people monitoring social media? I don't know. It would also be just really interesting to know what real people are, in the mind of this particular person that wrote this question. What's your advice for those who are struggling now? That everything is temporary. Everything is indeed temporary. Still, the thing is, I often talk about certain things, and I wouldn't necessarily say that I'm always happy, that I'm always feeling good, just because I know things and just because I have seen things and I've also experienced things. Because the thing is, we all know things. We all know that being negative all the time might not be something that's probably pretty good. We all know that everything is temporary, but the thing is, we often either don't act on it or we kind of forget about it and we kind of just are in our negative space and we are kind of unable to just see those things at this particular moment. But everything is temporary. Like, this is the bottom line. Everything is temporary and everything is going to just go by, whether it be something positive and or negative. And therefore, if you're just really happy at this point in time, really enjoy it. Really enjoy the happiness that you're feeling and really enjoy what you're feeling, because probably, I don't know, maybe in 3 weeks, I do really hope not, you're not going to be happy any longer. Maybe there is something that makes you unhappy. Maybe there is something that even makes you sad. So please, please, please stay grateful for just feeling good at this point in time. And also for all the people that are struggling but are still living in a first world country, like, yeah, we are really, really, really fortunate that we are able to live in such highly developed countries and that we are able to just get education, have our own lives, move out, because then we're going to just work and earn our own money. So it's basically a dream for a lot of people. It is a dream for a lot of people on this fucking planet, what a lot of people are not really kind of are grateful for. I do not really want to say that no one is grateful for being in a first world country and whatnot. And I also know that even though we are living in a first world country, there are probably some things that really piss you off and really are not making you happy. This is something that I'm having as well. But just have the perspective. Have the perspective of living in a first world country and of having quite everything. Food, water, hopefully enough sleep, health, medicine, and or drugs, all those things. We actually have everything. And this is the point. This is the point that I'm willing to make. We are actually having everything. And if you're complaining about a stupid grade or a stupid mark that you've got in one of your tests, then I understand it. I totally understand that this is pissing you off. And I totally understand that this is something that doesn't make you happy. I can understand that. And I can feel that, because it is often something that doesn't make me happy as well. But the thing is, we are living in a first world country. We are living in a country where everything is nice. We are having everything. And I particularly assume if you're able to just watch this video, then you're also in just pretty good, you are in a pretty good environment. I at least hope. And if not, just make the environment as positive and as good as you're able to do it yourself. I know we all have parents, and we can't do anything about it sometimes, but we can limit the time with people that are not really good for us and that are really negative and all those things, and we can increase the time we're spending with people that are really positive and that are just, yeah, that they're these people that are bringing out the really positive out of us. But yeah, this was today's question, and now we're going further to the news and see if there's some tech stuff or science stuff that might be relatively interesting. I do hope that there's not going to be about Pixel 4 and whatnot. And now I'm seeing it. Pixel 4 versus Galaxy Note 10, biggest letdowns and best killer features. I've actually yesterday looked at a video or watched a video from Marcus Brownlee. Nearly choked here. Marcus Brownlee, you know, his content is great. His content is really great. And I gotta have to say that the Pixel 4 is kind of okay, I guess. And I do just really have to say that there is something really, really interesting to see. That's, first of all, the iPhone 11, which of course is a really good phone, you know, but of course they also were able to do something or just a little bit more with it. Like, of course, we're now having 3 cameras and we're now having some other features and some other improvements, but it basically looks the same, and a lot of things are the same. Software is evolving, obviously, and it will, hopefully. But in terms of the hardware, there's not so many new things. And it might just be like, yeah, a letdown for quite some people. But yeah, you know, the funny thing is, it is also the exact same case for the Pixel 4. Like, we're having the 90 Hz refresh rate screen, which is something nice, I assume, you know, even though it just also includes some higher battery consumption, if, as far as I know at least. Then we are only having 2 cameras, like a telephoto and a normal one. They work fine, they are great, and they're probably going to be really great once the software is on top of its game. But yeah, you know, I like the design. I do think that the design of the new Google phones is quite good. But yeah, like, it is not a lot of new things at this point in time. Maybe there is going to be improvements with software and new features with software, which could definitely be the case. But yeah, you know, it is fine. 2 cameras. But something that really was irritating for me was the fact that we're still having the Pi, I guess it is called, on the back of the phone, you know, where the cameras are, those 2 cameras, the laser sensor and the light. And normally people are using this as well as the iPhones were using it, or Apple was using it for the iPhone, because they had 3 cameras and because you need the space for 3 cameras. But they are not having 3 cameras. They are merely having quote unquote, having 2 cameras, a flash, and also the laser sensor. So I don't know why then. You know, I don't know why they are actually having those this big Pi on the back of the phone. But yeah, maybe we can see something else. IKEA's furniture small blinds start to arrive in the US, but only in retail stores. That's nice. Best Surface Pro 6 deals yet offer savings of up to $600 on Microsoft's 2018 tablet. Apple AirPods 3 release could be coming soon, reporters say from The Insider, which is an hour ago, or from an hour ago. Downscaling, upscaling, same scaling, porting to Switch and underpowered consoles. Yeah, it's gonna be, I think, kind of work to do. You know, if you're trying to port your game to another low power or underpowered console. Fortnite Chapter 2, something that we've seen yesterday as well. I've seen Xbox get Xbox new Elite controller early from Taco Bell. Samsung warning, Galaxy S10 and Note 10 owners should remove their screen protectors now, because of certain reasons. Let's actually see what the Pixel 4 versus the Galaxy Note 10, what CNET, is saying there. Something that I'm seeing right now is that they're not having an optimized or responsive website design. Something that I do not really like to see. The Note 10 is far easier on the eye. There's no way around it. The Pixel 4 looks like a brick. What the fuck? Like a brick compared to the slick Note 10. Google's phone lacks a fancy design. I wouldn't necessarily say so, because it's it's really minimalistic, and this is just how design is at this point in time. Like, I think it's looking pretty great, even though, like, yeah, it might look a little bit plasticky, but it could also just be like, yeah, I do not like the, yeah, I do have to say that the Galaxy 10 or the Note 10 is looking pretty slick. Like, I don't know, it's looking pretty future-like, I gotta have to say. Like, it's cool. It's cool. I gotta have to say, it's cool. Some Pixel 4 gesture controls fall into gimmick territory. At this point in time, yes. You know, because they're just having an ray sensor, or was it? What is it called? I don't know. I think it was the ray sensor, something like that. And it is there so that you're able to just make some gestures and to use your phone via gestures. At this point in time, it's not that good, but I think it's going to get better through testing out things, through new algorithms, through just new software in general. But yeah, I do believe that this is just going to be the end of the episode. We went through a lot of things today, and this episode has just been pretty fucking great. I really have to say that. Like, it's been one of the episodes that I'm really happy to share. You know, because sometimes in the episodes when I'm not really able to talk, then it's fucked up, and when the episode is like boring, then it is also fucked up. I do not like to share the episode then, you know, at least not that much, some sorta. But yeah, I wish you the best health, happiness, and also success, and also hope that you're going to remind yourself and you're going to be remembered, because this is good, you know, because we can totally change our legacy and also manipulate or stimulate our legacy by just being a nice person, then being remembered as a nice person, in theory at least, you know, because practically it might be the case that you are a nice person, but just people are gonna hate you, because it is not really about you, but it is more than about the other people. But yeah, also 3 other questions that I hope that you're going to ask yourself are: why are you here, what are you trying to change, and what is bothering you the most? And those 3 questions are hopefully going to show you your purpose and maybe even some business ideas, you know, because often companies started out with solving some things that really pissed them off. And yeah, with that being said, I'll see you the next time, hopefully. So please subscribe, you know, to the YouTube channel and also to the podcast.